Hello. We are now live, both Kilani and I from Toronto and Singapore. Toronto and Singapore. What am I saying?
In
From Toronto,
Toronto.
not Toronto and Singapore. I am now in Toronto. So we thought we are going to do the show side to side. So welcome to the episode, everybody. And of course, always let us know where you're dialing in from when you dial in. And Kilani, you're going to introduce our guest today.
Yeah, for sure. It's always fun having our summer episodes when you're back in Toronto because instead of having the three people layout on the screens, we can just have the two side by side, which is nice. But today we have a really special guest, Mohiba, as you can see. She's an SAP SuccessFactors Learning SME at Deloitte, helping with HR transformation, and she's on a mission to empower women from all social backgrounds enter the workforce. Today, she joins us to share her story as a woman of color in a leadership position, the roadblocks she's faced on the way there, and how she's overcome them. We'll be talking about the importance of women of color in leadership positions, as well as inspiring younger women of color tonight. So whether you're a woman of color yourself, looking for ways to better support your coworkers, peers, friends, family, or simply interested in how you can make a bigger difference, tune in, get some popcorn or some tea, and sit back and relax. And welcome, Mohiba, to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show. This is my first show, so yeah, super excited.
Wonderful.
Even better. More to
Even better.
celebrate.
I know.
All right. So to get us started, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I can start off with my story because stories are very personal to me. I'm an immigrant. My family came with me and my other siblings in 2011. We migrated. I started my journey as a student at University of Toronto. I started off with studying for HR. With that, I also worked as a volunteer, which is truly something that I enjoy the most in my life. I started with a non-for-profit called AXA, which is one of the biggest non-for-profit in Asian code community, which is Scarborough. And then I started off writing my exams, taking the letter, started off my career. They offered me a full-time position there because of my work at there. And then I get got into the financial sector, and then came into Deloitte since last 6 years. I started as a Deloitte baby, being an intern, taking baby steps, and now I'm a consultant working in human capital consulting field, working towards transformation of HR technology and gaining that. That does not represent who I am as whole. I'm a person. I volunteer, like I started my story with. I'm really, really passionate about bringing, myself to the world and giving back to to Canada, to Toronto. Started my volunteer journey in 2011. Now I am on the board. I sit on the board for the same organization, and I also sit on the board for YWCA, which is Young Women Association. And then presenting women and understanding what's going on, getting getting insight about the issues our women are facing today. So that's a little bit about myself.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. Yeah, I think you have such a great story, and thank you for opening with that. The last time we spoke and we had our intro call, I was really, really sucked into your story and blown away by what you described to me as well. You mentioned that you've overcome quite a few hurdles on your way to where you are now. Could you tell us a little bit about what you faced and how you overcame them?
I think one of the biggest stories as women of color, especially as immigrants, of what we hear is that, and it's not just me, it's a lot of us. And when I'm interviewing them or counseling women or girls around me, they say that, oh, sometimes Mohiba, they say they don't understand my accent. These were some of the issues that I faced when I started off with my career, where when people understood what I said. But they will come back to me saying, "Oh, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean by that?" When I started off with my career, two things were my biggest hurdle. First, definitely the fact that I was a woman of color, but it was very interesting how people perceived me from a particular background, and also my religion, which I never spoke about openly, but they would ask me questions about what do I do, or do I eat this or that. At the same time, they would kind of mock me for my accent or my thought process. It
Mm.
was very, very hard for me as a woman seeing people make mocking me, and other people on the team just looking at them and not saying anything. That's something I do not encourage. It taught me a hell a lot of things in my life. When anybody around me goes through that, I tell them it's not about you. We can always work on your communication skills. We can always work on your don't feel that your color is something that is going to be a hurdle in your life, or your religion, or where you come from. I would also like to add, recently on my way to TTC, TTC is Toronto. It's our transit system, and I think a young girl was very upset having a conversation with her mother, and I could hear her side by side, and she was, again, a woman of color, and not pointing out or something like that. She was from our African Black community. And I think she was very sad about a position that she didn't get. And her mother said, I always told you to keep your hopes down because you are a Black woman. Those were the words of the mother. And I could see the child as very upset about it. And the moment I was walking out, because my station was there, I said, I was eavesdropping. Just want to let you know, you'll be the first one to break classes, to shed that, to
Mm.
go up, make an example, because you're a woman of color, you're Black. Do not let anybody ever tell you that you would not get it, or you cannot do it because you are from particular social background.
Mm.
Her mom teared up. She kind of teared up. And I said, you can always reach out, always listen to me, always, I'm here to listen and give you advice. But it's just one thing that you did not achieve. I always tell myself and others, that's just one hurdle that you not make it. There are so many, and there are so many exams that you can pass, or so many things you can achieve. It's just one side that, it wasn't possible. So yeah.
Yeah. That's incredibly sad, isn't it? That, you know, I think there's so much messaging still, right, in society for and really for anybody that it doesn't fall within, some form of norm, right? There's so much messaging there that that they don't meet that norm, right? And so therefore they're not going to be successful, right? And it's for me, for example, it was my mental health. When I was diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety as a teenager. I never saw myself as normal, right? So very often I also set very low standards for myself, for so I wouldn't be disappointed when every time I got fired from a job because I couldn't keep a job, because I didn't have the mental fortitude to keep a job. I would tell myself it was because I wasn't normal, right? And I think that is one of the major dangers, right? It's not even necessarily about what society says. It's when we start telling ourselves,
Yes.
right? That's
Yes.
that's when it becomes such a dangerous thing. And so good for you for kind of stepping up and saying something. I wish there was somebody in my life who early on in my life said, "Hey, what do you mean? You're not right. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think that's something that we should all be cognizant of. It's I remember reading a link a little while ago on it was a LinkedIn quote, and I thought it was rather good, but not completely correct. And I think it was from Huffington, and who said, every time a woman speaks up, right, she speaks up on behalf of all women. And I actually disagree with that. I think whenever a woman speaks up, she speaks up on behalf of herself because she needs to. But I think when a man speaks up for a woman, he speaks up for all women, right? And that we need more men, for example, speaking up on behalf of women leadership, which is still not happening enough
Yes.
in this world today. And I think that is such an important thing for us to really acknowledge here as well, is that we need more, more of us, us guys, stepping up and saying, hey, we need to start seeing this differently. We need to start doing things differently. And until then, I think that's when we can really kind of speak up for everybody.
And I learned, like, on that note, that I learned how to speak for others because of those incidents, because I saw people mocking me or making fun of me and others being quiet. I really wish somebody would have just stood up for me,
Yeah.
and nobody did. They saw that, this has happened. Mohiba was going through that. I teared up. I cried in those cubicles before COVID because that used to happen. And I wish somebody could have just said that, Mohiba, what they did wasn't called for, or something like that. It's not you, it's them. But nobody did. And I learned that if in my life anybody goes through that, I will be there, stand up for them, and maybe there will be their voice. Maybe they need me, or a word of courage can help or change their moment.
For sure. And what I love when you told the story about your experience on the TTC is how you act on exactly what you just said. You have this belief or this rule for yourself to always reach out and help other people. And I can really see in you that you always follow through on that. And what you mentioned when you were speaking about that story, and I don't know if this was an intentional phrasing, but I love the way you said you're going to break through ceilings because you're a woman of color. And I think it's such great messaging, because we hear oftentimes you'll break through ceilings despite being a woman of color, or despite being a woman, or despite mental health issues.
Yeah.
And I love that it was phrased, you'll break through ceilings because of who you are.
Yeah, because I think it was at that moment that a messaging was going on. I don't think so the mother was intentional about it. I won't blame the mother. But maybe she had those incidents when she was not given those opportunities because she was a woman of color.
Yeah, and she didn't want her daughter to be, in
Yeah.
pain, and she wanted to try to, at least help her daughter feel better somehow, right? And but it is unfortunate that ends up being the messaging, right?
Yeah.
And it is so true that so many people, receive that messaging still on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
True. I agree.
And you mentioned that a lot of your experience was kind of people making fun of you or speaking down to you. Were there ever people around you who you could look up to as women of color, or people who you felt connected to or felt that supported you in your journey?
Initially, it was very, especially when I was in university, and this is the major reason I do mentorship at University of Toronto, because I couldn't find myself. It was very LinkedIn wasn't the as common as it is today. It was starting off when I started studying and I was in my school. People didn't use it a lot. It was very difficult for people to access people. And around me there weren't a lot of people who would mentor me or who I can look up to. Mostly were men. It's not that I have amazing mentors who are men, but I wanted somebody who can I connect to, who could understand my story as an immigrant, who could understand where I'm coming from, what social like find in terms of social background, all of that I'm coming from. I needed that who could understand that. Initially, I could not find somebody, but more and more that I go went into different positions, I got accesses to other women, especially when I'm reaching out and I'm more out there. I think I did get more help and more assistance that I needed.
Yeah, and what was the difference for you in your experience between the times where you didn't have that assistance and the times where you did?
The major difference was that there was nobody to say that it is okay. It is okay if you failed. It's it's not even about failure. There was nobody to cheer to have that there for me to be like, oh, you achieved that thing. That's let's party, let's celebrate.
Yeah.
So that it was just, I think I missed companionship.
Mm.
Uh, Guidance really matters, especially when you are going mentorship. Coaching really matters to shape you as a person. I
Mm.
truly believe my coaches, my mentors, women or men, really defined me or polished me as a person. They guided me through through things that I wasn't able to, or I could have done better, or it was not in my mind set or mind frame. They brought that in my life. So that was the biggest difference then and now, is that the fact that I have people who would be like, who would advise me, who would celebrate with me, who would cheer me up at the same time. If I have a setback, they would listen to me and they would be there for by my side to have an ear. It matters a lot.
Mm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what strikes me too, right? As you're saying that, because of course, as much work that we might be doing in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all of those kind of things. Um, there is still a tremendous disparity, right? With, especially when we start looking at leadership positions in corporations, right? You see
Yeah.
the percentage of just women to men, not even women of color, just women to men, still so significantly smaller than than men, right? And in order for us to create a balance there, we still have a lot of work to do, right? And you mentioned that the not having a support system in a sense, right? Kind of that can feel very lonely in those positions. I can imagine, like, just every single woman in the place of leadership, and I coach many women leaders. How lonely that must feel sometimes, right? Because there isn't that support system, like, within the organization. There aren't many people they can turn to really kind of talk these things through. And as where of course men don't have that issue because they're surrounded by men. And that already puts them at a tremendous disadvantage, right? And so I can see that just that challenge in itself can prevent a lot of female leaders from growing and climbing in organizations if they're not supported internally and proactively. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what was the one statistic you were saying the other day? There's, I think, more men named John in leadership positions than there are, is it women in general?
Women, yeah. That's and this is CEOs. Yeah, so
Okay.
more CEOs in the United States named John than there are women CEOs in general in the United States. Yeah, so kind of tells you something about that, that imbalance that we're still seeing, right? Areas, and it still shows you how much work we still have to do in that whole space. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and what I think is really powerful about what you were just sharing too is that the difference in your experience between when you had a support system and when you didn't was huge. It was kind of, you listed almost all of the aspects or characteristics that we learn about in terms of being successful in something or having longevity in something. And
Mhm.
that difference is huge in just simply having a support system. And
Yeah.
with the work that you do now, connecting with and mentoring younger women of color and inspiring them to move up in their careers and get into the workforce, what kind of difference are you seeing, or what kind of impact does it make in their lives to have role models who are women of color as well?
I think the biggest thing that I try to do is to develop friendship. Doesn't matter they're younger girls. I'm trying to be young. So I learned so much from them. We develop where I really enjoy mentoring because I develop it starts with friendship, getting to know each other, understanding each other inspiration, what do you want to do. So my conversation would rotate around, okay, what are we doing? What is our action plan? What are we trying to achieve? How do we get there? What resources I can provide to get you over there. A lot of time, we, especially when we're young, we are very afraid to reach out and expand our network.
Mm.
We are still figuring it out. So when we go through those conversations, I create a plan in my head, write it down in my first session. Okay, we will do work on LinkedIn as your platform.
Uh-huh.
The very famous word that I say, your LinkedIn is your Instagram.
Uh-huh.
You have to market yourself. You have to brand yourself. You have to come up with your game when it comes to your LinkedIn. It's not because um, it's better than Instagram or LinkedIn is better than vice versa. What I'm trying to achieve is that we our social life and our personal life can merge together at the same time, grow our network, build friendships, be personalized, be open. I wasn't. I would say, hey, my name is Mohiba. I'm trying to know. Tell me your story. What did you watch on the TV? We discuss shows. So
Mm.
that's something I try to do when I'm mentoring them, so that I've always seen my mentees coming in very timid. Oh, Mohiba works at Deloitte. She is a girl who works in human capital or consulting. She might be very cold or warm, or she might not. But over a period of time, when we talk about other things, their personal life, what's going on, how can I help, expand them, give them advice. We sit down. There's a proper session where I go through their LinkedIn, give them advice. I'm not the best, but at least I can give some pointers, go through their resumes, and in the end, encourage them to apply. There are times that I always scored this, and that's for my from my professor. He said we were. I still remember we all were about to graduate, and he said you are going to apply to 100 jobs, but you only need one. So doesn't you are going to get 100 acceptance or 100 rejections, but you are going to accept one because you're only one person. So you will get the one. So no problem. Doesn't matter how many rejections we receive, we are going to move forward ahead with, because you're just looking for one. We are not looking for hundreds. So it's okay. So these are some of the things that I work through my mentoring sessions.
Mm. Yeah, and so I'm hearing two things, right? So the first, it seems to me that a maybe a possible restriction, right, or an inhibiting factor, maybe, um, is for especially these young women, right, to have the confidence or maybe comfort to kind of just step out and say, hey, this is me, this is who I am,
Yeah.
right? Kind of, maybe there's a degree of, whatever the restriction is or the inhibiting factors are, but there seems to be an inhibitor that prevents them from just being willing to do so, right? And the second one that I hear is kind of maybe a resistance to just being vulnerable.
Yes.
That with that willingness to ask for help, that
Yeah.
willingness to say, hey, I'm just alone, right? I'm alone here. I need support, or I need help, or one of those things. And that if you're a female aspiring to be in leadership, or you are in leadership, is if you can do those two things, that would make a major impact in your growth as a
Yes.
professional.
100%.
Yeah, awesome.
And I always tell them that leaders that I connected with, it was never because of work. On a personal note, we both opened up, the leader and I, may it be men or women, or even coaches or mentors. We talked about our personal story. You don't have to get personal about, oh, this has happened, this, or, but you can open up about your interests. Where have you traveled? Show your personality. Otherwise, you're just a name. And that's something I learned over a period of time, and that's something I teach my my mentors as well, that we have to be personal for in order to make an impact, and in order to be remembered. And because each person is unique, you bring a unique story to the table. Be vulnerable, be open about it. And and I'm 95% or 99% of the time, people will be kind. They will be there to share that moment, or listen to your story and give you advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what's so great about LinkedIn too, and why I really get why you're pushing that for younger women too. Is it is such a great place to connect with people, and in my experience too, pretty much everyone you speak to is willing to help or connect with you in some way. And like you said, every conversation, and a lot of conversations I have end in friendships even, but they all end in valuable connection of some kind.
100%. Yes. Yeah.
That's Yeah, and so now we've talked a lot about kind of the impact of younger women of color in leadership, which I think is such a great topic. And one question I'm really curious about, kind of looking at a more futuristic side of things, if we were able to kind of create a perfect balance and have women of color be really influential in leadership positions, what kind of impact do you think that would have on our collective world?
Sorry, you got to. Sorry.
That's okay. Where did I cut out there?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So the question is, if we were able to create a perfect world where women of color had, equal influence and equal representation, what kind of impact would that have on our world?
I truly believe in balance, where men and women both are represented at the same time, and at the same positions. Or what it really, the impact that it's going to bring is that, where we're living in a society, for me, if I see somebody, a woman up there, it brings inspiration for me. I think in my head, as a woman or a girl, I want to be there. I want to be that person. I will be there one day. That's just me. I want to grow up like her. Oh, that inspiration. Another thing, a point that comes in, where we talk about work-life balance. When women bring in, because they're mothers, they're usually, they're it's not that they bring that balance of coming in, that I want to have my me time, not just because they're mothers. It's just that as women, we really believe in taking care and be voicing that. So that brings a lot of aware, in terms of sensitivity on the project, or caring aspect, that nurturing nature comes in when women are leaders, which is something that really inspires me, because they bring that, okay, we have to do this, or it's this not that, they're 100%. We build, as women, we believe in deliverables. At the same time, we believe that it's very important to have work life balance in that aspect. First is definitely inspiration. Second is work-life balance, and the third one that I believe that makes a very big difference is leadership styles. You see two different personalities. You see a mix. They learn, women and men both learn from their experiences. Their leadership styles are different, and as a person, I really enjoy that their personalities, how they understand or navigate through problems. So these are the two things that really brings a big difference, or that world how it will look like is how these three aspect of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And and I can see that too, right? Like if you're have that greater balance, right, at those senior levels. A lot of research points, for example, right, that women are much more emotionally intelligent leaders than men are,
Exactly.
right? So having more of that balance will change the way organizations make decisions about their visions for the future, about the impact that they're making on society, and so I really believe that when that level gets more balanced, we're actually going to see a flow over of the amount of good that's going to happen, not just in the independent workforces of those organizations, but literally into society,
Yeah.
right? Where we're going to see society become better because companies are going to start contributing to making their communities better rather than just the bettering the pockets of their shareholders, right? And I think that is such an important thing. And the other thing too is, if you think about, of course, I might be heavily biased here, living with all women in the household, but I also believe that women are tremendously courageous, right? I think they have tremendous courage, like you said. Just the fact that you can be a mom and you can be a full-time leader in a leadership position. The amount of stuff that women can do, and those kind of that men they just leave us in the dust, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take a tremendous amount of courage to be able to make those kind of impactful decisions for the betterment of societies and communities and all of those kind of things. And that's just something that generally men don't have. And so we're always going to be limited in the growth of society if we don't have a better balance at those higher levels for between men and women, and including of color. That is extremely important, because we need to be, like you said, we need to be able to inspire everybody in society, right? All levels. We can only do that through diversity.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah. So I'm on board with that for sure. Right? Yeah. So hopefully somebody's listening.
We'll just keep reposting it.
Yeah, that's right. Come on, people. What are you doing? Come on.
Yeah.
You know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And especially where our world is evolving, right? When the new ideas that women bring on table, the thought process. I'll just just a random example where a lot of guys or men go golfing, we go shopping, we read books. I'm pretty sure, I'm not saying men don't read books, but we read books. Like, those different ideas, those experiences from childhood, from the society. I will never disregard that fact that as men and women, we are perceived the same way. No, we
no.
are different in terms of how in people's perception. Doesn't matter, our personalities are stronger or are equal to each other, but people do perceive like these people, like women and men, differently. In terms of inspiration, when you said where our world is evolving, we're talking about LGBT community, where where we have maybe two families or two couple, same sex couples look up to those people saying, oh, you know what, we just started a family, we're planning to start a family, we adopted a child. World is evolving so much. We need those role models to look up to. If she can do it, I can do it. If she stood up for herself, I can stand up for myself, because we just started a family, or I want to start a family, or it doesn't matter where we are in stages of life. It just gives us encouragement to go out there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and it's and this might be a bit forward from me, but you know, something I say a lot is you know, if every country in the world was run by women, you know, I really believe the world would look very different.
I truly believe that too.
It would be a place of collaboration. It would be a place of innovation. It would be a place of, you know, a world of growth, of balance, of like, you know, and a lot of the issues that we're seeing today, I don't think they would exist, to be honest.
And it's very interesting to have that a case study as a case study for us to. I really looked
Yeah.
into New Zealand,
Uh-huh.
where we saw a young woman
Just
taking leadership, taking decisions, how she dealt with the biggest terrorism attack ever that occurred in New Zealand, COVID,
Yeah.
and there are wildfires. There were three different things that it wasn't like, oh, one thing happened, one thing went wrong in her leadership. But how she dealt with it, it really inspires me. How she collaborated with other countries. Each each of these crises were dealt with a lot of care, a lot of considerations, and it was just an organization. It was the whole country that was looking up to her, and the world was looking up to her.
No.
It was very, very interesting. I read about it a lot.
Yeah. And actually, you know, what I find about that too, that example, actually, even how she stepped down
Yeah.
was such a courageous act of leadership.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Like, you know, I mean, right now there are men in the world trying to hold on to their positions of power, right? While they have long passed their expiry date.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to hold on those positions of power. We have no idea why. And here you have this woman who has accomplished such amazing things in such a short period of time, and they kind of go, you know what? I think it's time for somebody else. I think it's, you know, it's time for me to step aside, focus on my family, do what I, you know, need to do. It's time for somebody else to do the job, you know. So I mean, that is inspiring.
100%.
You know, like if every leader could realize that point, you know, if we're to say, hey, I think I have just made myself obsolete, I am now going to step aside and welcome that next, you know, we're only going to see evolution.
Yes. 100%.
Right. You know, and that takes strength to be able to do that. You know, and it's not a sign of strength to try to hold on to power. That's not a sign of strength. You know, so yeah, and I admire that a lot in her. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Me too.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and sharing this time and space here. I just have one last question to kind of round us off here, and that's, where can our audience connect with you?
They can connect with me, obviously, on LinkedIn. I might sometimes be late to respond. It's not that I'm trying to ignore anybody. It's just that I've been so busy with my own personal life and my work at the same time. So please reach out on my LinkedIn. More than happy to have coffee chats, guide you through. It doesn't have to be a woman of color. I say I'm colorblind when it comes to my to races, to people. Please, more than happy. Please reach out to me on my LinkedIn. I will connect to you personally, and we can always set up coffee chats and take it from there. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Sounds good. Thank you. Do you have any closing?
No, I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and you know, and telling us a little bit more about, you know, kind of your experiences and then, you know, giving us an opportunity to kind of play in this in the simulation, this amazing simulation of possibility, which I love. And hopefully somebody gets to listen from this and gets to be inspired, and and we can maybe make an impact on somebody. So thank you for joining us today.
Anytime. It was such a pleasure talking to both of you, and thank you for having me as a guest. It was truly my pleasure.
Of course, anytime. And now you have a live show under your belt as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. Well,
to our audience, I just put Mohiba's LinkedIn link in the comments, so you can easily click on that and connect with her there. Definitely recommend reaching out to her and connecting with her. That's how we met. I think it was probably 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
We connected for similar reasons, and we've been connected ever since. And if all of our audience enjoyed this episode, please comment one word that sums up your biggest takeaway from our conversation with Mohiba tonight. We'd love to hear that, whether you're watching live or the replay, we'd love to see. And for more videos like this and more conversations like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which I'll link here in just a second, as well as our LinkedIn page, so that we can continue having important conversations like this one. And as always, if you're interested in speaking as a guest during one of our live streams, or know someone that you'd like to see on here as a guest, either message me or Marcel and we'll have a chat.
For sure. I'll let them know. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
Perfect. I'm going to just put our links in here. I'm sitting further from the computer than usual, so we're adjusting.
Yeah, that's my fault. I take up a lot of space. Yeah.
All right, there we go. Now we should have all of our links in there, including Mohiba's profile. Perfect. All right.
Awesome. Well, in that case, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you in our next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.